Welcome to Uncanny X-Minutes, where we bring you the comics behind the movies. I'm producer James.
And I'm Sasha.
And we're watching X-Men First Class minutes 20 to 30.
Do you want to know what happens?
Yes, I do.
Magneto continues to hunt Nazis. Moira McTaggart enlists Professor X. And Sebastian Shaw shows off his powers on a boat. I would say that that's probably a yacht.
Yep, probably. Shows
boat implies something
what I know.
A little less fancy.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not a boat guy.
That's fair. It's
So,
very expensive to be a boat guy.
I don't want to be on a boat. Thank you.
I don't mind being on a boat. I just don't want to do all the work that involves me getting to be on
You
a
want
boat.
boat friends?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
My wife wants boat friends.
That's fair. I get that. It's very popular in Chicago if you can get boat friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
Anyway.
I'm not in that tax bracket.
I don't have the interest to be a boat guy anyway. This set of minutes, we've decided we're going to give a little bit of a highlight to Emma Frost.
Yes, because she did appear briefly.
She used her powers.
Yeah, she turned into a diamond.
And she uses her mind.
Yes,
she does
in this
both
one.
powers in
Yes.
in this 10 minutes.
Yes.
It started with the diamonds.
With the diamonds. Yeah. So we need to talk about Emma Frost. We've briefly touched upon her.
Yes. She keeps coming up.
Yeah, because she's a major character.
Which it kind of proves the point of like, with these movies sometimes when they introduce characters that the general public doesn't know about, it's always fascinating who they end up choosing, because there are certain characters that if you read the comics, you're like, how have you not used them?
Right.
Emma Frost feels like one of them.
Yeah.
Like, you got to use her eventually. And then they used her, and then that was it.
It's, yeah, like we talked about this briefly. Like, she kind of seems like a subordinate. And Emma Frost kind of is one early on in the X-Men runs.
Sure.
When she's at the Hellfire Club, she's the subordinate to Sebastian Shaw, who we've touched on briefly, who we will go into much, much greater detail at some point.
Yeah.
But, like, she is in the comics very much her own person.
Yes.
She is somebody who is not like, we've talked a lot of people who kind of come and go in X-Men comics and they kind of disappear for a little bit. Emma Frost is not one of those people.
No.
You need to know who she is.
Yeah.
She has been there since very early on.
The Dark Phoenix saga is where she started. I mean, that's also where the Hellfire Club started and Sebastian Shaw. Like, they all started at the same time, and it's all with that.
So she is part of one of the most iconic runs of X-Men.
But like you said, she never went away.
Right. And she doesn't go away. She also is a major character during one of my favorite runs, which is the New Mutants run with her Hellions.
Yes.
Whose characters, all of the Hellions, or not all of them, but a lot of them also kind of, those disappear and reappear occasionally, but they are still in comics today. They don't just disappear forever. Like, she has staying power, and people in her orbit generally have staying power because she's an inherently interesting character.
She does fall into the boat of, I say I'm in the boat mode now. She falls in the boat of, like, her characterization can swing wildly like Magneto.
Absolutely.
Depending who wants to write her, she can be the most mustachioed, twirled villain you could see, or like the fiercest ally you could ever have.
Absolutely. And she does. I mean, and this flip-flopping happens relatively early on. Like, as she is a villain through New Mutants and Hellions.
Yeah.
But after that, she teams up with the X-Men against Nimrod. There's like a bunch of stuff. Like, this is when it, like, right after that, they start kind of doing things occasionally together. Sometimes she's a villain. Sometimes she's an anti-hero. Sometimes she's even a hero.
I will say, I when doing the research, I'm gonna just put her name into my search engine, and you always have those suggested questions, and the top one was, is Emma Frost good or bad? Yes is the answer. She kind of, I feel like she falls into the Mystique category of like, is her own interest.
Yeah.
If her interest aligns with the X-Men, she's with the X-Men.
Absolutely.
If it doesn't, she's not going to hang around.
And that being said, there are like certain storylines, especially the Krakoan era, like where you find out. So where she's like helping people because she cares about them. Frequently and often, women.
Oh, yeah.
She, like, if you're a dude, get real, get lost.
Unless you're Scott. Or
sometimes Tony Stark. We'll get there.
That's one of my other questions.
Yes. But
So we'll get there.
we will get there. But that is a later characterization,
Yes.
I would argue.
Yes.
She has a story that predates now her original showing up in like the Dark Phoenix saga where she is a villain. And they've written her backstory to be more sympathetic to match up with more recent characterizations.
Yes.
That's what you're going to run into.
Yeah, I read the there's an Emma Frost run that's like 18 issues long. It's like early 2000s, and it is basically her in high school all the way through college. And I feel like a lot of it is, it's interesting because it shows you her home life where she is rich, but like emotionally abusive father, basically. Like she can't do anything good enough. She doesn't really know she has powers. It's definitely a world where mutants are just being discovered.
Yeah.
But it is that sliding time scale. So there are like cell phones and the internet and computers. And
because they don't.
Because they kind of have to.
Yeah.
It will only be at that, and it's not like Magneto where it's so solidified in 1 year.
Yeah.
Or like, a handful of years.
Magneto is actually kind of strange that his is so specific.
Exactly.
Because it's tied to a real thing that
an
happened.
actual event.
Yeah.
Her mutant ability appears, but it's not like, ooh, I know what it is, I know what I am, and I'm going to work on it. It's like a slow roll through 18 issues of her having like no control over her power to complete control over her power. It's interesting because it's like 6 issues of her in high school, little bit of powers, not a ton. Then it's like 6 issues of her in New York City trying to make it by, ends up getting mixed up with a degenerate gambler and trying to help him resolve his debts, and it ends up in her being like fake kidnapped, then real kidnapped, and then this is the first time where she uses her powers properly, but also uses them to pit the men against each other.
Yeah, so she can make off with the money.
Right. It is her starting to become a manipulator and using her powers as such, and sowing, a little bit of deceit and pushing everyone against each other, and then basically it ends up with her with the ransom money and she moves to New York City. She started in Boston.
Yeah.
I should say that. So now she's in New York City. She's going to Empire State University, which is where a lot of superheroes like to go to college. And then it is her meeting another psychic that we never see again because she basically makes her catatonic at the end.
Astria Bloom.
Astrid. Yeah. So I mean, I don't want to go into all of it, but it by the end, she basically, Astrid is another psychic who has full control over her powers and tries manipulating Emma, and when she finds this out, ends up turning the tables on her. Like, Astrid brings her into her mind.
Yeah.
And Emma goes, "Oh, I'm in your mind, huh? I'm going to figure out how you know how to do all this stuff." So she goes into her memories because she's there.
Yeah.
Figures out how she does it, and then basically vegetables her, and I don't think she ever comes back.
I don't I've never seen her, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was something, because it's such a, but the problem is this was a later invention.
Sure.
And also,
but that's always a good reason to bring him back, though. Like if you start using her is like, oh, because now we're gonna write her into comics, or she's coming back. You know?
The other problem is that this is not the only origin story.
True.
So that is also part of the issue, is that if you are, whether or not you believe in the Emma Frost run, or whether or not you believe, it's a little bit in X-Men Origins Emma Frost, but this is actually from the Generation X book. There's 2 books that have it. There's number 24 and number 48. And then there's like a little X-Men, like 13 through 15. It's like a later, it's just like adjectiveless. And
so the 90s run.
Yeah. In that run, basically it's her telepathy shows up at school. Xavier shows up. Her dad, also still abusive and terrible, is like basically sends her to a clinic where like they institutionalize like embarrassing children for rich parents.
Sure.
And then there's a lot of, I don't want to go too much because we don't have a trigger warning at the top of this, but there's some bad things that happen to her there. And gets out by joining the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, like kind of against her will, which I don't like that as much.
No.
Because it removes a little bit of agency from her. Fun fact about this, though, when I was reading about this, like there's a period of time where Professor Xavier tries to recruit her, and then like she says no and joins like the Hellfire Club and stuff, and he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna wipe your memory so you don't remember, and then just does that.
Yeah.
She just becomes one of those early victims of Professor Xavier just willy-nilly wiping people's memories because they're inconvenient for him. Truly something.
Yeah. I mean, that's Silver Age. It's not a Silver Age book, but it has that Silver Age flair.
Yes. And once she ends up in the Hellfire Club with Sebastian Shaw, she becomes the Emma Frost from those original comics where she's very cold and calculating and very out for herself. She's a solidified villain. Literally how she joins the Hellfire Club is she's like she's like her and 2 other women trying to compete for a spot. And Shaw is like, okay, which one should die? If you tell me who to kill, you can join the Hellfire Club. And she's like, you can kill both of them, I don't care. And then just watches him murder them. Like she's a true villain.
Yeah.
That is an era of her. Right around that time, right after this, is when she runs the Hellions as well. Like during the Hellfire Club period, where she is training these students and competing with Xavier to recruit students to her school, which is the Massachusetts Academy.
Right.
Which is a front, kind of. I mean, it's there to teach children.
It's
but
still
also,
school.
Yeah.
In the Emma Frost solo run, she's going to college for a major in education with a minor in business.
That's really funny.
And I was like, oh, that's good.
That's really good.
Because that's on point.
Yeah. The Emma Frost that I know is been shadowed, right? Because you are a much more recent reader.
So
of Emma
I
Frost.
read later, like we're talking post Whedon, where she's with Cyclops.
Right.
She's with the X-Men.
Truly hate.
And I love it. But I didn't read a lot of that older Claremont stuff. So
yeah. And so
I can see why. Because it's funny, I even read it, was like, huh, that's something. But when you read a lot of comics and you jump around a bunch, or you've left and you come back, you just accept things.
Yes.
You're like, I don't know how he got here, but I can't argue it.
Right. Because there's just so much. Unless you literally go back and read it all, you will never really know the context, right? You
can complain. Like if you don't like how she got from A to B, I'm sure there are valid arguments that can be made.
Absolutely.
I haven't read that much. Like,
yeah.
I haven't seen the change, but I'm more likely to be the person that enjoys where we are and what interesting things we can do with where we are now than like trying to change things between runs.
Yes, I think that's fair. I think there are a lot of authors that agree with you, because I've definitely opened up books where I open a book and I'm like, this is a different character than the last run. Okay. Like there's nothing you can really do about that. You kind of just take that at face value. Magneto, that happens to a lot. Yep. Emma Frost is, like we mentioned, another one of those. But the problem
can be that way.
Mystique
except for she always seems to go back. So like you're like, I don't know what I was expecting, but I like you still for some reason.
Yeah. When I was reading, I've talked about the New Mutants run, the original New Mutants, that I really love those books. Like they're really near and dear to me. And Emma Frost is the villain of those books. Mm-hmm. She just is. Like she runs the Massachusetts Academy, which is the Hellions, which are like the counterpoint to the New Mutants. They're like their enemies.
Mostly villains through most of their runs. They're it's like a handful that end up being good people. But and
it's like some of it's back and forth a little bit, but basically like the Hellions are the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants for the kids. Like that's what they're there for.
Like we talked about Empath one time.
Empath is one of the Hellions. Right. Emma Frost notoriously, infamously killed the pony of one of her students because she was mad at her. Okay? Like this is not a drill. There's no gray here. Emma Frost is a villain.
Yeah. But
she would do it again.
Like But the thing is, even when she's good, she's not goody two shoes.
Yes.
The air of attitude is still there.
That is consistent with her, which I like. I mean, this is the problem, right? Is that newer stuff I've started to soften towards her because I've read so much new stuff now that I'm like, well, I mean, I do love Emma Frost, the fact that she does not wear fancy clothes. She wears casual, comfortable clothes and projects not all the time, but sometimes. But yeah,
she will do that. Yes. Is what I think that one. It was like a 1-page
I loved
comic.
It, though. I hold on to it because I love that fact about her.
It is a great fact. Like if she chooses, that can be the case.
She will not put on her fancy clothes if she doesn't want to. She'll like wear casual stuff and then psychically project a crazy outfit or like fashionable outfit so it looks great, but she's also comfortable. That is very relatable. Like that is a very relatable use of your power.
Right?
And so like that's the kind of stuff that I think is cool about her. But this New Mutants era is so ingrained in my brain, and my dislike of her comes from that. And also I think part of it too is I was a kid when I was reading these books, and so like I had a very like emotional of like this is the bad guy. And you know, as I get older, obviously I'm reading more books, but I feel like there's a little core side of me that's like I do not like Emma Frost. Like
she and I think my issue with the movie's portrayal of her is the actress doesn't have her vibe. You know, like it is a woman that needs to own every room she walks in. She could be giving an order, but she'll only do it if she wants to. You know, like she feels like a lapdog in this a little bit, and it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, I will admit that early on in the Dark Phoenix saga, she is a little bit like that because that character isn't fleshed out yet, but she moves away from that relatively quickly.
Yeah, then I mean that's what you need to do.
In the New Mutants, she outsmarts Magneto.
Yeah,
she is able to manipulate, not really psychically, I would argue, like because
that's the thing,
tell.
Right? Like she manipulates both, I think, psychically and not psychically.
Exactly, she's just smart.
Yeah,
and basically, Magneto makes a huge mistake. He lets. I don't want to get too much into the New Mutants, but the point is, at the end of the day, the New Mutants were manipulated by her. Magneto was manipulated by her, and she somehow found a way to like make it so that Magneto trying to tell the kids that she's a bad guy makes them not trust him, and also refuse, because she had such an open door policy with them, intentionally being nice to them so they wouldn't believe that. They like never believe that she's actually a bad person, which is crazy. She killed somebody's pony. Okay, do you know how hard that is? They know about this. This is not a secret. Like, so it's like she's very effective in that way, and that leads to the end of the New Mutants. I would argue their inability to trust Magneto because of Emma Frost is what makes Magneto go evil again, partially. And also, like, what makes them not trust him and that whole school fall apart. Xavier's school falls apart under Magneto's watch. I would argue a good reason is because of Emma Frost, which leads into X-Force and Cable. It is a very interesting, like, character for her at the time, because it's like this manipulative person who's getting the better of one of the most evil villains, like at the time, right? Like, well, at this time he's good guy because he's trying to fulfill Xavier's promises, but like this is Magneto. This is not like a low level villain. This is not Toad you're tricking. This is like she is playing with like the highest level villain, like strong powerhouses in the Marvel universe, which I think is. She was impressive from the beginning. They wrote her that way. And I think that is cool. And that is not what is in the movies.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I got to say, though, one of the questions that pops up when you just put in Emma Frost is what is her mutation? Which, I got to say, they did it right in the movie. Yes. There are two.
Yes.
She is psychic. She's always been psychic.
Yes.
The diamonds weren't around in the 60s.
No.
The diamond form, we have talked about it before, but we'll bring it up again. That's from the new X-Men run, Grant Morrison, with the demolition of Genosha, the massacre, the genocide of Genosha. She is one of the few survivors because a secondary mutation kicked in, and she survived because she turned into diamond.
Right.
The one stipulation is when she turns into diamond, she can't use her psychic powers.
Because it blocks it. It keeps her in.
But, if she's in diamond form, others can't also get in either.
That's true. So it keeps her safe from Xavier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that all happened later, but, you know, I'm fine with adding that in the movie. That makes her... Because honestly, they admitted to using it in the first place because they needed a brawler on the team, and they're like, well, we'll just start doing second mutations.
Why not?
Who cares? I'm fine with it.
I would say that mutation is very new when they use it. I think it's probably one of the newest things they pulled, right? Like with the diamond, because Grant Morrison's run is like what, 2000 and like...
I think it's like 2000.
Oh, is it?
I think
I
think it's maybe within 8 years. I think it's a fine amount of time.
No, I mean I think it's good. I just like usually they're pulling for such older stuff. enough.
Yeah,
it was kind of
right.
cool to see them pull something from a little bit more recent.
It's hard because nowadays I feel like the movies pull quickly.
Yeah, it's true.
And so they're like, well, what's cool? What was cool in the last like 5-10 years?
Well,
you know?
well, we'll see with X-Men if they actually do that. I doubt it though. They're gonna pull old stuff, I think.
I know it's hard to talk because like
Yeah,
Marvel hasn't made any X-Men stuff really yet.
Right.
So
we don't know.
we don't know.
Anyway,
I do want to go. There's one more question on here that I
Yes.
want to talk about, and that is, are Tony Stark and Emma Frost married? So this is a late stage Krakoa storyline.
yeah, this is Fall of
This
X.
is Fall of X.
Yeah,
Yes and no. Like legally, I don't think they're technically married because she was going under the guise of his assistant,
right.
which I forget her name now.
I didn't write that down. It's a made up name.
Kendall. That was her name. So she was pretending to be Kendall because all mutants were basically not allowed to be on Earth anymore.
Yes.
That's all I'll say.
Yes.
She was also wearing a ring that is blocking her abilities so that she's also not detected as a mutant.
Yeah, because there are Sentinels trying to ensure that mutants are.
Stark Tech Sentinels,
In
too.
fact.
There's some sort of thing where she wants to take care of someone, and she takes off the ring and throws it, and he goes and grabs it and gives it back to her, but it's on his knee.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's great.
and a villain walks in, and they're like, you caught us in the middle of a proposal.
Yes.
So now they have to go through with it.
And they invite the villain,
And
too.
they invite the villain, and it's part of the ploy to
Right.
get into his mind.
Yes. However,
But-
after
They have an actual relationship.
they have a romance, it's a very stereotypical rom-com romance where
Oh,
it's like
absolutely.
we're faking we're getting, this is my boyfriend, my husband, or whatever, and then you just
Because
go through
he's
with it.
such a public figure
Yes.
that they have to like make appearances so they actually go on vacations, but the vacations are just the cover for the things they're trying to do.
Yes.
Like the actual story plots they're trying to do for the Fall of X are underneath them like going on a romantic vacation.
Can I tell you,
Yeah.
this is perfect, and I'm mad that it's not still happening. Like
I did not last long enough.
it
I wanted it to go on longer.
so spoiler if this sounds incredible, it was a wild ride, so enjoyable, but let me tell you, it was short, and I'm mad about it because actually now that I've gotten it, usually like these cross like
Because it is a
genre,
crossover.
yeah, crossover marriages or like whatever are silly, and like it's not gonna last in like whatever, but this, when you read it, you're like, wait, actually, they should be married. I cannot think of a better two combo than these two, actually.
I love that Tony Stark loves himself a strong woman,
He absolutely does.
and she needs a strong man.
Absolutely.
And like not
and
in
he's
a-
rich enough for her. That is also important.
Yeah,
for Emma
yeah.
Frost. Literally.
Sure is.
She because the thing is, Emma is very rich. We didn't talk about this, but like,
I like briefly mentioned it at the
yes,
beginning.
but not
But,
from
like-
her family.
Yeah,
She
she
built-
started with her family and then built it again.
Yeah, because she left with nothing. She is a
She's
self-made
accustomed
billionaire
to
okay?
a certain lifestyle.
Yes. So that is kind of the problem sometimes with her love interest, which is why she tends to stick to superheroes, because the imbalance of power between a psychic that can read your mind, who is also a billionaire, and
right.
a regular person is insane. She is not Storm, who will frequently, like, despite being a goddess, is down to earth enough to where you find her relationships with regular people to be like believable.
Sure.
I think like Storm has a relationship kind of during this time period, during X-Men Red,
with like an astronaut.
with a guy.
Yeah, he's just a dude.
He's a guy. I mean, just a dude being an astronaut.
He's an astronaut.
But like still.
A hunky
like, You
astronaut.
can be an astronaut. I cannot be Magneto. Like,
Yeah,
I've tried. Like, right? Emma Frost is not that character. You
No.
will not catch her just like
No.
dating some random dude. That's like,
No.
it's like literally, it's just not, it doesn't really work for her. And I just really loved it. I thought it was a perfect marriage. And I like her better with Tony Stark than with Cyclops, because the thing with Cyclops,
Yeah, I
we have to
mean,
talk about it. We don't have a ton of time. But
I
this
get what
is
you're saying,
brutal.
but I do love I do love them two
Okay,
together. I don't know what it is.
I'm going to give you your space here.
Yeah.
Because I hate this. So I
Yeah,
don't
you
think it's
can.
fun. I don't think it's fun for me to talk about it.
Yeah.
I think it's more fun to talk about it for somebody who loves them as
Yeah.
a couple. And I would like you to give me your best pitch right now as to why Emma Frost and Cyclops are good together.
I think for me that Cyclops, he's always the leader. He's always been the leader. And with him and Jean, they always felt like more like they came in at the same time. They've been there the whole time. They feel like they're just part of the original team. Whereas I feel like they stay together all the time, which I do love their love. Don't get me wrong. When Emma's with Cyclops, I think she builds him up. I think she is his support structure and will get him to go the extra step when he needs to. Is that good? Maybe not. Is it interesting? Absolutely.
Interesting. So that's all fine and dandy when Jean Grey is dead.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Which is usually that's when they're together. They're usually is when they're dead.
Usually is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence.
Yeah. Well, that's where it started, and that's where I was reading.
Okay, but then there are definitely parts where this becomes a love triangle.
Yeah.
And that is in particular when I find it insufferable.
Yeah.
To be honest.
I don't know if I've read a ton of the love triangle
Really? Okay. So you didn't see the whole thing where Jean Grey catches him cheating with Emma Frost in his own mind psychically?
I did. I loved it.
Yeah? Explain yourself.
Because it's I thought you loved the soap opera stuff.
I like the soap opera. I guess I just don't like. You're right. I think I'm just letting my purist nature, there's just something about Jean Grey and Cyclops. This is just the ship. We're on different ships.
Yeah,
that's what this is. We're on different ships,
Welcome
and that's
to the
okay.
boat episode.
Yeah. Actually, we should have called it a ship instead of a yacht, because that's where this leads. I think there is just something about it's the romantic side of me, I suppose, that Jean Grey, kind of like Rogue and Gambit.
Yeah.
There are certain couples in the Marvel universe, and I would argue that the Invisible Woman and
Reed Richards
is another.
I almost threw Dr. Doom at you, but I forget that was.
I love Doom,
or
but
Namor.
I love that. Anyway, let's not go into.
We'll go into that later.
But they are a couple that feels like the true love couple, and any kind of dalliance feels bad, and I don't like it. And I think that part of the issue with the Madeline Pryor and why that doesn't feel bad, and the Goblin Queen feels kind of fun and makes sense, because to me, the end result of Scott being with another woman is that situation in which some sort of horrific thing happens and the world is coming to an end.
Sure.
And that feels just right?
Okay.
That feels like that is the world correcting itself, right?
Yeah.
And with Emma Frost and Scott, it doesn't really do that.
I think their relationship is different than the others you've mentioned, because the others you've mentioned, I feel are allowed to stand the test of time. They're not going to write anything where Reed Richards ends up with someone else. And maybe they have, because I don't read enough Fantastic Four.
We're speaking a lot about things we do not know.
This is true. But for example, North Star and his husband.
Yeah.
Nothing. If anything happens to them.
See?
Heartbreaking.
Now imagine if Emma Frost broke them up. How would you feel?
Right. But Emma Frost got with him after? No, that was before they got together, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the problem. I went back and I'm reading on 3 different timelines right now.
That's true.
And it's
confusing.
I'm crossing things. Yeah, well, shoot.
It's okay.
Is this also around the same time where Jean's messing with Wolverine a little too, though?
That's true. Now, that's a fair point.
So that
I also don't like Wolverine, though. I'm fair here.
That's the thing. It's their stuff gets a little messy, and it's always been a little messy. Even at the very beginning, before Scott even dates Jean, there is the Scott Warren Jean triangle. It's not a huge triangle, mind you, but they're trying it a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like,
and then they moved it to Wolverine.
They did quite quickly, and it makes more sense. I will say, generally pretty definitively, Jean Grey always picks Cyclops over Wolverine.
Oh, I agree.
Krakoa being the best exemption of that, but it's like it was just equal.
Yeah.
I know that's not technically canon, but it is to me. So, and this is my podcast.
So take that. So I mean, I do like Emma with her, but I with him, I do think Emma and Tony was a great love affair, and I wish it would have gone on longer.
There are people out there who are huge like Tony Stark and Pepper fans, and I know that I'm making them angry, but I don't know. I don't read that stuff. I only read the X-Men.
I think it's tough. I think that they only could do it as a crossover, because then you start doing X-Men, Avengers, like if they're married, they have to keep crossing over and again.
This is the problem with the X-Men universe. It is kind of on its own within the Marvel, and you can't have, if you do it, which they do sometimes with X-Men going into the Avengers, becoming Avengers, there's kind of a reason that they just become Avengers.
But they just become Avengers.
Yeah.
Like Spider-Man becomes a part of the Fantastic Four. They kind of blend a little bit for a while, and then they'll split back into their normal whatevers.
Right.
But taking an X-Man out that's integral to the one story, she can't just be an Iron Man person and then still be doing Fall of X stuff, or,
right, which she absolutely needed to be doing.
Right. So I get why they did it. I want it.
I know. I'm feeling the exact same way. So.
Sorry, I derailed us with one question.
It's a great question.
But I realized that when I was doing the research that these are the questions people ask
about Emma.
About the character. So, I mean, I just had to. The other one was what happened to Emma Frost, but I don't know what that's in reference to. But because she's in X-Men books still in Rise from the Ashes.
Okay.
She's in the Kate Pride. No, I think she's back to Kitty Pryde now.
Is she back to Kitty Pryde?
I think she's back to Kitty Pryde. Exceptional X-Men? Is that her title? Could be.
I'm a little behind for the current stuff. So
I mean, she's on the covers. It's not really that much
there
of
you
a...
go.
Yes, it's Exceptional X-Men.
There you go. We didn't have time. There's so much to talk about.
There's so much to talk about.
But the relationship between Emma Frost and Kitty Pryde, I also really enjoy.
Read that Marauders.
Marauders, where it comes to mentorship. I don't love exactly where Marauders goes.
There's some good stories.
But
I think we've talked about it before.
It's good. Yeah. So, well, that's it, I think.
We'll just wrap it up today. I'm producer James.
And I'm Sasha.
And we'll see you for the next 10.